unlike in Gaza, where you've got a civilian population that is trapped, in southern Lebanon, the civilian population has fled for the most part. And who is left? The Lebanese armed forces has withdrawn several miles. UNIFIL is saying that they're staying at their posts and that their posts are smack dab in the middle between Hezbollah and the IDF. The IDF is saying that they're in limited operation mode right now, but we continue to see them press forward and make gains daily.
Can you just bring us up to date, good morning, Zach, about where we find ourselves this morning, please?
Well, a precarious situation, no doubt. With this continued ground invasion, the Israelis continue to want to call it a limited operation and incursion inside Lebanese territory. They have the force size there that continues to show they're ready to push much deeper, go a few miles farther inland. But this is where they're meeting this first line of Hezbollah resistance. And it's also the areas where UNIFIL has the greatest concentration of facilities. In fact, as we were driving across the border, and the IDF soldier told us, okay, we're in Lebanon now. We still had another 10, 15 minutes of driving after that. They wouldn't allow us to know exactly where we were. I was able to kind of figure it out on my own after the fact. But I think what was surprising was as we were driving through Lebanese territory along the border, some bright blue oil, what do they call those? The oil barrels, painted bright blue, UN in white across the barrels, and they were put on stakes across a line that was kind of probably about 5 minutes past the borderline. So I was surprised, and I'd asked after the fact, is this UNIFIL saying essentially this is our route? Don't come across it. And the answer was yes. UNIFIL's got these barrels that they put all down the border, and it's supposed to signify their routes of safe passage that neither Hezbollah or the IDF is supposed to interact with.
Now, you've been speaking to Lieutenant General Nadav Shoshani, who is, of course, a spokesman for the IDF in Lebanon. We can hear a bit of that now.
And when we operate in the area of the vicinities of UNIFIL facilities, because Hezbollah is firing from their vicinity, we communicate that with them, we give them warnings, and we make sure they have a chance to get out of harm's way and stay protected. This is the reality Hezbollah created, fighting us, firing rockets and missiles towards civilians from within civilian populations and international facilities.
Now, Israel has insisted, Zach, that this offensive against Hezbollah is targeted and limited. Is this a strategy borne out by what you saw on the ground?
Well, it was first off, slight correction. It was Lieutenant Colonel, not Lieutenant General. I'm sure he would love the upgrade. The the thing that we noticed in particular was just the level of ground forces there was everything screams that they're ready for a large scale invasion of Lebanese territory. That if they wanted to, they could continue to push. What did we learn about these first 16 days now of this ground invasion? Well, some of the areas that we were taken to were areas back in the 2006 war, which lasted about a month, about 30 days. Those areas, Hezbollah met IDF forces right there on the border and would battle it out for days. It took the IDF 10 days for the specific area that we were in before they were able to take that area and that territory, that village. What we found is that the IDF has rolled into some of these areas where in 2006 there was very heavy fighting. They rolled into these areas and met very minimal resistance and then got just past them, and Hezbollah was waiting on the outskirts of those areas. And that's where the heavy engagement is now taking place. I think one of the important things to remember about this battle space right now is that a lot of the civilians have fled and had already fled over the last year. This isn't an example where we have instances that we can confirm and corroborate where Hezbollah fighters are keeping their families inside these areas and these battle spaces. Right now, we just see combatants on combatants. In all honesty, we don't have video evidence otherwise. And Hezbollah has been out there on social media posting footage of these battles, anyways. I think one of the key takeaways here is, unlike in Gaza, where you've got a civilian population that is trapped, in southern Lebanon, the civilian population has fled for the most part. And who is left? The Lebanese armed forces has withdrawn several miles. UNIFIL is saying that they're staying at their posts and that their posts are smack dab in the middle between Hezbollah and the IDF. The IDF is saying that they're in limited operation mode right now, but we continue to see them press forward and make gains daily. Hezbollah is looking like they're a very disorganized organization, but willing and ready to
Okay.
continue to combat them everywhere.
Zach Anders, reporter, thank you very much, and do stay safe.
Now, a fifth UN peacekeeper has been wounded in Lebanon, but it's not clear where the gunfire came from. Israel's faced international criticism after it admitted targeting a UN base. The ground incursion by the IDF into Lebanon and the waves of aerial attacks have led to more than 1.4 million people being displaced inside the country. Some are refusing to leave their homes. The Sunday Times correspondent Louise Callahan joins us this morning from Lebanon. Hi, Louise.
Hi, good morning.
Your dispatch from the south of Lebanon is particularly enlightening as to the attitudes, I suppose, of people in these small villages and towns that are so close to what is becoming the kind of target area, I suppose, for the IDF. Some of whom have fled, some of whom, understandably perhaps, don't want to leave their homes. Tell us about where you've been.
Yes, says that this is a limited ground incursion, but basically, it's rendered quite about half of Lebanon essentially uninhabitable, so as you said, 1.4 million people have fled. And then so last week we went down into the south in the area of Jazin. So it's a mix of Christian and Shia villages, which are through these kind of amazing mountains and valleys. It's unbelievably beautiful, but it's it's a ghost town. It's the whole, you can drive for miles and miles and miles through these valleys and not see anything. We went to one Christian village in particular where the priest came with us and showed us around. The windows of the church have been smashed by the Israeli bombardment, and it's just ghostly. There's the kind of crops are dying in the fields, and the houses are all boarded up. And this is what huge swathes of Lebanon currently look like. When you look on a map, then it looks like the Israeli invasion is taken only small parts of the country, but it's in fact there's huge parts of the country which are now just kind of empty, and people have fled. 1.4 million people have ended up fleeing to the cities or to the north where they feel safer.
And is there space for them in these places that they're fleeing to, and is there help for them along the way?
So we were speaking to organizations which are trying to help people who are fleeing, but I mean honestly there's just not enough help for them. And what's a really big concern at the moment is that now we have this kind of initial wave of displacement, a kind of extreme displacement over the last few weeks, and people are living in schools, they're living in mosques and churches, but now it's kind of the concern is disease, hunger, things like that. I mean, Lebanon was already in this appalling situation. It had a terrible economic crisis in 2019. Then, much of downtime, Beirut blew up a few years later, and then so now there's war, and there's already so much need here, and the government, frankly, just isn't handling it. They're not doing enough. The army is barely working in large parts of the south, and then so people feel like they have no support, and that they don't have enough aid, and the risk of hunger and disease is growing larger every day.
Yeah. Louise, thank you very much for speaking to us this morning. Louise Callahan, who reports from Lebanon this morning. It's good to speak to her, but you can read her full report in the World section of the Sunday Times today. Wine, olives and desolation clinging on in Lebanon's ghost villages. It's amazing to read from people who are feeling really thrown, disconcerted clearly by what is going on. Some who are determined to stay because this is their livelihood. They are working. They're running, for example, a vineyard, a winery in one circumstance, but also the help that is on offer, which is reassuring, but as Louise explained, is not enough. If you've got a digital subscription to the Sunday Times, go to thetimes.com and you can read that in the World section this morning.